Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I thought we'd have just a really quick and casual conversation about dating. I got so many questions on Instagram about dating, how to date, what does that look like, what should it look like, what's right, what's not right, and so I thought I'd just answer some of the questions, talk about some of my thoughts, and then we can get into more detail if you guys want, but let me know down below if this is something you want to hear more about and then what specifically you would like to know about dating. Someone was asking about intentionality within dating, and I think that that's a really great place to start because dating should be intentional. And what does that mean? When we're dating, it should be with the idea of marriage in mind. So like, I'm dating this person because I'm discerning who it is that God has called me to marry and whether or not it is this man or woman. And so when we're dating, we're going through that process of praying and asking God to reveal to us, is this the right person for me? Is this the person that you have planned for me to spend my life with, who's going to help me get to heaven, who's going to be my partner for everything throughout my entire life? If we're not at all ready for marriage, then we're also not ready to be dating, because that's what dating is for, to lead us towards marriage. If we don't have that in mind, we're not being intentional, there's no actual point of dating. Dating is not just for our selfish pleasure, just to do something, just to spend our time with someone, having fun, messing around. If we're doing that, we're wasting our time and we're wasting their time, and we're not being loving because we may be keeping them from someone who they are called to marry. If I know that I'm not called to marry somebody, if I know that I can't see myself with them, then I shouldn't be wasting both of our time with them when God may be preparing us for someone else. So yes, dating should be intentional, and that continues on into the relationship of being intentional when you ask someone out, being intentional with your relationship, knowing what we're doing, that we're desiring the good for the other person. We are intentionally preparing ourselves for marriage through our dating relationship. There was a couple of questions about how to get to know someone properly, what kind of questions should I ask, what conversations are good to have. So I'm gonna link down below. I don't want to repeat something that is already so amazing. Emily Wilson has a video of 50 questions to ask before you get married, and they're awesome. I just listened to it again to refresh my memory, and they're so good. So I'm going to link that down below so you guys can check that out. In addition to that, like those questions and those conversations to have, those are all really, really important. And you want to feel like you know the heart of the other person in an appropriate way. So like in the beginning on your first date, you're not going to ask them everything that's ever happened in their life. And you also shouldn't be sharing everything that's ever happened in your life on the first date. But as you get to know each other, as you progress in the relationship, that all should come. Before you enter into marriage, you should feel like, I know this person's heart and they know my heart. We've been transparent about many things, and Emily goes into all of that, all of those questions that are really necessary to talk about before entering into such a sacred commitment as marriage is. And how to get to know them properly, I would just say it should be with pure intention, purity of heart and mind, getting to know who they are. So just be curious about them, ask them questions about their life, about their interests, do things that they're interested in, bring them along to the things that you're interested in, teach each other, learn together. And you always want to be looking out for the other person's best interests, because ultimately, if this is the person that you're called to marry, then it's your job to get them to heaven. So you always want to be leading them closer to God, and you always want to be desiring their good, so you always want to be helping them get closer to God. You want to get to know them in a way that honors them, that upholds their dignity, and that is seeking authentic love and not any cheap imitation versions of what love truly is. A guy asked, should the guy always determine the type of date, or should it be a joint decision? I think that a guy should plan the first date, for sure. If he's the one asking the girl out, I think that he should plan that date and not be like, oh, what do you want to do? What should we do? Like, no, you're being intentional. You're asking someone out on a date. So plan the date and plan an awesome date to get to know each other. I don't think that that means a guy always has to plan the date. I definitely don't agree with that. I think that the girl can definitely plan dates. When my husband and I were dating, I planned some of our dates and they were awesome. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I definitely don't think the guy only has to be always planning the dates, especially once you get into dating. In the beginning, it's nice for the guy to be able to plan out something special for this girl who he's desiring to get to know and he's interested in, and he's pursuing her heart. That's beautiful for him to plan those things, but it doesn't mean that they can't plan things together. For sure, plan things together, have her plan some things, take turns, make it fun. Someone asked how to do it, like how to date, what does that even mean? And she said it's so hard and consuming nowadays. So I'm also gonna link below something called the Dating Project. This was an initiative that started at Boston College. A professor offered extra credit to her students who would do this dating project. Her intention was in knowing that we have such a hookup culture. People don't actually date very much anymore. They just hook up and are completely not intentional. So she offered this extra credit and then nobody was doing it, and she realized that people weren't taking up this extra credit to date others at the university because they didn't actually know how to date. So it ended up becoming a documentary movie. It's called The Dating Project, and there's also instructions, so I'm gonna link that down below too, on literally step by step how to date. This is what you do, this is how you ask, this is where you go, this is how long you go, this is how much you spend. And I don't necessarily think that all of the guidelines are necessary. Like, one of them is to only spend $10. I don't think it has to be $10, but the idea is that you're not spending an exaggerated amount of money on the first date for no reason. You're just getting to know someone. So it could just be a very simple coffee or a very simple lunch or very simple dinner. It doesn't need to be very elaborate, very expensive. That's not necessary. So I wouldn't say that all of the guidelines are 100% like stick to this or you're gonna mess up all your dates, but it's really awesome guidelines on how to be intentional with dating and just to go on dates. Like, let's bring dating back to life. There was a couple of questions about how my husband and I made God a part of our relationship and how we met, and if he's Catholic, and if he had the same beliefs as me in saving sex for marriage. So I promise, I've been saying this since I started this channel, him and I are gonna make a video together on our dating relationship and on our proposal and on our wedding. It's a lot easier for me to film because I have more time than he does, and so when we're together, we're not like sitting down to make a video together. We have it planned, like we have it in our calendar of when we're gonna sit down and do these, because we really want to just have recorded our story for our own sake so that we can remember all of the details of like these tiny little things that are so special and meaningful for us, and just to share that with you guys for whoever's interested. But just briefly, yes, my husband is Catholic. Yes, he had the same ideas as I did in saving sex for marriage. We did make God a priority in our relationship. God was central to our relationship, and so we'll talk more about that when we share our story in the video. And someone asked how we met, so we met at church through a friend, but we'll get into all of that. Someone asked, how long should a couple be together before getting engaged? So this goes back to being intentional. You should know at some point whether or not you can see yourself marrying that person. So dating for years and years and years and years and just having no end goal, that's not intentionally dating, because that's just dating to date. So I would say as soon as you know something, like if you and the person you're dating both know that you want to be married for sure, and you feel like you're at a place where you're mature enough to make that decision, then I don't think that there would be anything necessarily stopping you from moving forward. Of course, there are complications and situations in life that make that more difficult, but my husband and I dated for 11 months before getting engaged, then we were engaged for 9 months. I don't think that you need to date for like years in order to know that you're gonna be married and then make that decision. It doesn't have to take that long. It depends on what stage in life you are, how old you are, but I would say if you're out of college and you're dating somebody for 2 years or so, you should know by then if this is somebody that you want to marry, that you could see yourself marrying, and then be able to take steps towards that goal. And if there's serious reservations that you have after 2 years, then that's something that you really want to take seriously and consider whether or not this is the right person for you, or this is the right time that you guys should be considering marriage. So there's no really like set, you should be together this long before getting engaged, but just be intentional. Date someone to discern whether or not this is the person that God has called you to marry, and once you know, move forward, either towards marriage or ending that relationship so that you can get one step closer to the one that you are going to be married to. Someone asked, if you've been with someone 3 years and he still hasn't proposed, then what? This question kind of concerns me because to me that sounds like there hasn't been a conversation about what we expect and what our assumptions are about proposals and engagement and marriage. So I would say if you've been together with someone for 3 years and he still hasn't proposed and you're thinking, now what? Please sit down and have a conversation with him about what your ideas are and your beliefs and values about marriage, about engagement. Like, some people have different ideas. Some people feel like I have to have accomplished this before I get married. And if they have that in mind and you aren't aware of that, then you're sitting around waiting, like, why the heck haven't we gotten engaged yet? And you don't know what they're thinking, and maybe they think we have to be dating for 5 years, or maybe they feel like you have to live together before you get engaged. Everybody has different values around that, so you want to know what they're thinking so that you're not just sitting around waiting. Or maybe you have totally different assumptions or expectations of what it looks like to get engaged and to get married. So I would say have a conversation with the person that you're dating and see what their values are, what their ideas are, and if you're on the same page about that, because that's really important. Someone said, can you talk about dating a Christian but not a Catholic? So just briefly, my husband is Catholic, so I'm not going to share too much about this. To me, it was really important to be with someone who is Catholic. I dated someone in college who was non-denominational. He was an amazing guy. He was super strong in his Christian faith, and he did lead me closer to God. I just didn't feel like he was the right person. I didn't feel like he was the person that God had planned for me. And I wanted to be able to share all of the aspects of my faith with my husband. So I wanted to be able to go to adoration together, to go to confession together, to go to mass together and worship our Lord in the same way. That's not necessary for every couple, and I don't believe that every couple is called to that necessarily, because people have really beautiful, amazing sacramental marriages between Catholic and non-Catholic Christians. And as long as that person is bringing you closer to God, as long as he is strong in his faith and you guys are equally yoked and he is able to speak to you about the faith and lead your family spiritually, then I think that's beautiful. That's amazing. That's good. For me, that's not how it is, and I'm really appreciative that we share our Catholic faith and that we have that in common. But I know really awesome, beautiful, holy Catholic women who are married or engaged to non-Catholic Christians, and they have amazing relationships. So it's not necessarily bad, but I'm grateful for the way that it is in my marriage. And I'll link down below a couple of those couples that I'm referring to their blogs or Instagram pages. So if that does apply to you, you can have someone to look to for their example or for advice, because that would be important for you in your situation. Someone asked, what if finances are in the way of engagement? So this is hard to answer without knowing, I guess, more about what that means. But of course, like when you get married, you should be in a place to be financially stable, to live on your own. Some cultures are not that way though. Some cultures, they don't live on their own right away, and so maybe that's not as much of a priority. But I think it just depends. I think as long as you're able to provide for yourselves, you don't have to be in the best financial situation of your life in order to get married. If you think about a few generations ago, they would get married as teenagers or as really young adults, or right out of high school or right out of college. They weren't set up financially. They grew together in their marriage and became financially stable. Of course, you need to be able to pay your bills. That's important. If you don't have a job or neither person is able to provide financially, then I think that that would be a reason to put off engagement. I wouldn't agree at all with the fact that you have to be saving up for years in order to pay for a really nice engagement ring before you get married. Go simple. There's really affordable rings out there. That shouldn't be a barrier to getting married. I don't feel like all of debts and loans need to be paid off before you get married. I don't feel like you need to be making a certain amount. Like, you just need to be able to live. You just need to be able to pay your bills and provide for your family. Other than that, I don't think that finances should stand in the way of marriage at all. Someone asked, when did you visit each other's hometowns? So we live in Miami, and my husband is from Miami, so his family is here. So I visited his hometown when I met him, because that's where his hometown is. But I guess as far as meeting each other's families, we met in July. We started dating in August. This was of 2016, and we met each other's families in October, September, October. So we were dating for 2 months before we met each other's families. I remember exactly what I was wearing when I went to his parents' house and his dad cooked me dinner, and I got to meet AJ's parents and his sister, and it was such a nice night. And meeting his family made me even more sure that this was an amazing man that I should definitely be dating, because he treated his family so well, and I was just so much more attracted to him because of that. I met his family first because we lived in the same area, and then he came up with me a couple hours north of where we were living and met my family. So that was about 2 months into dating, and that's when I knew, yeah, it was in October. That's when I knew that I loved him, and we'll share more about that in the video where we talk about our story. A couple of people mentioned purity and saving sex for marriage, so I think I'm gonna make a whole nother video about that, but comment down below and tell me if you want me to make a video on that, or what else you want to hear about dating. This was just like a quick chat because I kept getting a lot of questions about dating, so I wanted to answer them and address some of those things. But basically, be intentional with dating. Check out the Dating Project. Check out Emily Wilson's 50 Questions to Ask before marriage. Seek the good of the other person. If you know you're not going to marry them, don't be dating them. If you and the other person know you want to be married, get engaged. Make it happen. Do what you need to do. If money's in the way, find a job that allows you to get married. When we get married, our goal is heaven. Our goal is the sanctification of our souls and our spouse's souls. So date with that in mind. Date to uphold their dignity, that you're taking care of their heart. And if they are going to be your spouse, then you have prepared well to love them within marriage. And if they're not your spouse, they're going to marry somebody else. So take care of their heart and their soul while you have responsibility for it, and help preserve it for the person who is going to be married to them. So date with intention, date with love. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. Let me know what you think. Give it a like if you liked it, and don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!